Can you hear me now? And are we up? Because I'm not hearing Mike. Am I on? Okay. Well, we're having some problems with our system. Every time we get our system in and finished, something else goes out. I'm sure none of you have ever had that happen. Yeah, it's called technology. It's great until it isn't, right? Yeah. So anyway, good evening. How's everybody? You all right? Good deal. Tonight, we want to look at 1 Peter 3, 8 to 12. And I've entitled this Living the Right Way. And you'll see why in a minute. It's actually a summary passage to the things we've been looking at. This has been, I refer to this as an occasional class on 1 Peter because we have interruptions about every second or third week for something. Last week I was in Nashville with our son Jonathan, who had his ankle destroyed and had to have it redone. So we were in Nashville last week, and
I never heard. Did he?
He was at a fire at his brother's house, and it was dark, and he stepped on a creek rock, a big creek rock, and he rolled the ankle and fell down on the side of it and broke it in four places, 220 pounds straight down on the ankle, broke it in 4 places, and chipped it 2 other places. So they had to take out 2 bone chips, piece the 4 bones together, put a security strap around them internally, 2 plates and 9 screws. And he's got a 10 to 12 week recovery if it goes well. And he went back to work yesterday. I loaned him my tricycle, my little bicycle. You know the little bicycle that you push around on one leg? I had one from 5 years ago, and it's been loaned out to 6 people. And the last person I got it back from was Richard Hastings' granddaughter. And she had put a little basket on the front and a little beep beep horn and little flowers around it and everything. So I took it to Jonathan and I said, "This is perfect for you."
He'll do good going in that corner, that back corner.
Yeah. Beep, 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 beep. And he's got the little electronic thing that makes like 5 different sounds. I mean, he's fully equipped. The guy's ready to go. So anyway, he's had fun with that. Anyway, let's look at this passage tonight. I think there's a lot of good content, good meat in this passage to help us be better Christians. You know, one of the things that Peter talks about in this whole section of 1 Peter in chapters 2 and 3 is he begins by talking in chapter 1 about how you process persecution, how you process being mistreated by others. In chapters 2 and 3, he talks more about how we act in front of other people, especially people in the world. And the whole idea is your goal in life is to protect the good name of the Lord and His people. You don't want to do things that are going to bring shame on the Lord. You don't want to act like an unchristian, even though you may be in a situation or a culture that is grossly unchristian. You still keep your high bar standards. And that's kind of what he's finishing up here in chapter 3, verses 8 to 12. In 2:11 to 17, Peter began by telling Christians in Asia Minor how they should relate to the overall governmental and social structures. In other words, and what's the rule when you're in a society? You've got the cultural rules, you've got the governmental laws, and all of that. What's the rule? What's the standard that a Christian goes by in dealing with a pagan culture? And by the way, I consider American culture a pagan culture, very much so. What's the rule? What's the basic guideline that a Christian should follow? If you had a classroom full of high school kids and you're wanting to teach them how as Christians, as real Christians, how do you act in a pagan world with a pagan government and pagan culture?
obey the,
What does God expect of you?
you obey the laws as long as they don't break.
You follow every rule that you can possibly follow, right? You fit in. You fit in. You comply. You be the best citizen you possibly can be, with one exception. You don't ever violate your moral code, your ethics, to obey a law. You can't do that. So, you know, if the government says you can only go 65 on a highway, then you can only go 65 on a highway. If the government says you can't meet as a church on Sunday morning, you're going to violate that. God doesn't hold you to that law, because that law is Nazi Germany, 1936. Government says if you have Jews in your neighborhood, you have to turn them in to the government authorities to be executed. You don't have to obey that rule. You just don't have to obey that law, because that law is immoral. And that violates your Christian commitment. That's a general rule. In 2:18 to 3:7, which we just finished a couple of weeks ago, he then gets much more specific in that he addresses household situations. Okay? The family laws. What if you're a wife and you're married to an unbelieving husband? What if you're a slave and you are sold or in subservience to an unbelieving master? What if you are, just imagine any situation. And that's what he talks about. Guiding principles within the boundaries of your own household. What's the rule there?
As long as it don't,
Same rule, isn't it?
yeah, you obey until it.
You be submissive in any situation that involves a superior. You are submissive to the will of that superior. You are obedient to the wishes of that superior, to the extent that you can without violating your faith. If it becomes your faith or the individual, then you follow your faith. But, live at peace. I think one of the key words is, at all levels, respect. You show respect, consummate respect for all people. You may not like the governor, but you obey the laws of the state government. You may not like a president, you still obey the national laws. You may not like people in the police department. Yeah, some people don't, some people do. You still have to obey the laws. Not because you like people, or not necessarily because you agree with them, but because you fit in. Keep your nose clean. Don't do things that are going to cause a scene and bring shame on the Lord's church and on your fellow Christians, and thus bring it shame on the Lord. So that's what you got as a basic rule. Now we look at 3:8 to 12, and Peter summarizes his teaching in these character qualities that Christians should demonstrate in order to protect the good name of the Lord and His people while you're living in a hostile and pagan world. These exhortations define the character needed to respond to evil and insult, no matter what the source is, whether you got a pagan government that's godless, or a mean boss, or a cruel master, or a domineering husband, or a peevish wife, or whatever. I mean, no matter what situation you've got, you are first of all a what? You're a Christian first of all. Period. You are a Christian first. And we're going to see some principles that are laid out. I love this passage. It's real to the point. Let's look at verse 8. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Verse 8, he says, finally. Okay, that tells you something right there, right? When you use the word finally. Finally, all of you should be of one mind. Now notice, he's just talked to what? Husbands, wives, slaves, citizens, right? Whatever situation you're in. Now he says, all of you. Who's the all of you? Church. He's writing to the family now. Be of one mind. You should be of one mind. He says 4 things. You should be of one mind, sympathize with each other, love each other as brothers and sisters, be tender-hearted, and keep a humble attitude. Well, that's a pretty strong list. I mean, you've got about 4 of the 4, if not 5 of the fruits of the Spirit there, don't you? Built into that. He says, finally. That means he's going to summarize. See, you've got to look at the words. Words are not chosen accidentally by God. When a writer says finally, he's summarizing, isn't he? You know, you'd like to think when I get to a certain point in the sermon and I said, finally, oh, thank goodness, we're going to get out of here now. You know, I can go to lunch. Then he says, all of you. He now moves from specific Christians in specific settings to the whole church community in their relationship to one another. By the way, what should be our goal as fellow Christians in the family of God, knowing that we're all going out into a hostile world, knowing that all of us struggle with different kinds of problems, knowing that all of us struggle with different kinds of temptations, and sometimes abuse, sometimes mistreatment because of our faith? What is the one goal we should all have collectively for each other? What's the one thing that should be a priority among us, knowing that we're all going out that door into the world?
Looking out for you.
Okay. Somebody else?
Encouragement.
We want to encourage.
Love.
We want to show love, and we will certainly be talking about that in a minute. There's another word that's in my mind that I'm hoping somebody will throw out, but you know, you're trying to guess what's in my mind. Bible says you can't know what's in a man's mind unless he tells you.
Prayer.
Hmm?
Prayer.
Prayer? How about the word support? Can you not walk in, should you not be able to walk in the door of the house of God and expect the full support of your brothers and sisters in your struggles in the Christian life?
Yes.
If you confess sin and ask for prayer, should you get judgment or should you get support? Because in some of our fellowships, we aren't quite clear on that. See, I tell people all the time, hey, our goal in this church is to help people to get to heaven. That's all. We just want to help folks. We want to help everybody get to heaven. We just want to help you get to heaven. The best way I can help you to get to heaven. Now, are there times when you need to be called out on something if you're doing something you shouldn't?
Yes.
Well, it doesn't hurt. But even then, Paul says you should do it in a loving way, realizing that somebody else may be calling on you tomorrow for something. In other words, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Our goal should be to support and encourage one another every day, every way, all the time, in every situation we're in. That should be our goal. That should be our driving passion in life. I want to encourage you to be faithful to Jesus. I want to encourage you to keep your head up when somebody's pushing you down because of your faith. That it's okay to be a Christian. Okay, so just be good with that. He says be of one mind. The first thing he says is, in order for Christian community to be a true place of support and refuge, we have to agree on how we go about doing that and what matters, right? Your salvation is what matters. Your going to heaven is what matters. You're falling more and more in love with Jesus every day is what matters. We need to be together on that. There needs to be a common commitment to taking care of each other. Okay? There must be like-mindedness. We got to understand that everybody's confronted with the same hostile world. I go out that door, I'm walking into the same world you're walking into. Now, I'm not walking into the same specifics you're walking into. But I'm certainly walking into a world that's dominated by the same devalue system. Amen? Yes. Yeah. So, you know, we're all struggling. We all walk out that door. We've got struggles. You got yours, I got mine. But it's all around us. We are, as Peter began the letter by saying, we are strangers and sojourners in this world. This world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. So the minute you walk out that door, you're in the minefield. My goal in life is to help you navigate that minefield without getting blown up. I hope that's your goal for me as well. Now, you don't need to come forward now. I'll do that later. We've got to be committed to the same high standards of behavior. There's got to be agreement. We may not agree on every little, we may not agree on translation of the Bible or whether you wear a suit or not, or what color flooring you put in the building, or whether you have flooring in the building or whatever. There's a lot of things we can split hairs over, but we need to be really together on the idea of there are certain kinds of behavior that we deserve to expect from each other as we face this world around us. He says another thing we need to do is sympathize with each other. The word sympathize is taken from the Greek word sympatheo. Sound familiar? It sound like the same? Yep. Yeah. And that's made up of two words. Pathos means to have strong feeling. The word sum comes from the little connector word sun, sun, which means along with or to share. So sympatheo means to share passionate feelings with somebody else. In other words, we hear people say every now and then, I feel your pain. We need to be able to feel one another's pain. Well, I haven't been through what he's been through. Well, imagine if you were going through it. How would you feel? You ever thought about that? Well, I can't help him because I haven't been through that. Yeah, but imagine, and this is part of being sympathetic. Put yourself in their shoes and say to yourself, if I were having to go through that, what would I need? That's a great way to diagnose how you can help a person, by the way. What would I need if I were in that situation? How would I feel if I were going through that? You know? If my mate, my partner in life had just left me and I didn't even see it coming, how would I feel? And if I was a Christian, what would I need from other people to help me get through that? I've just lost a loved one. How would I feel having gone through that? Well, I haven't been in that exact situation. No, but you can imagine how that would feel. What would you need from somebody? I just need an arm around my shoulder and somebody to say, I want you to know I love you and I'm praying for you. If you need a meal, no, don't call me. I'm going to call you every day for a week and just ask you, how you doing? I love you. Can I bring you a meal? And all you have to do is just through your tears, just say, yeah, and it'll be there. Would that help you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's sympathy. That's sympatheo. To feel strongly with somebody. To share that territory with them. We try to understand what different ones are going through and the kinds of situations they struggle with. You got to practice humility toward one another as opposed to being harsh and judgmental. If you're down, do you need somebody to kick you? Do you need some genius to walk up and say, oh, it looks like you're really down? Yeah, stupid. You want to say that back, don't you? And actually, they probably deserve it. And yet we have folks in the church that do that, don't they? We're afraid to confess sins sometimes because we're afraid people will turn their nose up and kind of look down their nose at us like, well, I'm going to tell you something. If they do that, can I just be blunt? They're going to go to hell for it anyway. Because God despises that kind of arrogance. There is nobody that God thumps on harder than people who are arrogant and self-righteous and think they've got it all figured out. God can't stand people like that. If somebody diagnosed you with a terminal illness, how would you feel? I'm going to embarrass my friend Butch. If you were in Butch's situation and you have a progressive disease that will eventually take your life, that just keeps you debilitated all the time, and when you get one thing fixed, something else goes wrong. And you hurt all the time, and you can't use your hands, and you're confined to a wheelchair when you can get out, which is not very